Welcome back to the LEC, where we're saying move aside, babes, to G2 and Fnatic, because your new favourite European rivalry is here. It's Mad Lions versus Rogue, and both of these teams are on track to make their third consecutive Worlds. But do we want to see these teams in America, Vedi? Are they going to embarrass us? Are they going to represent us well?
I feel like right now I have a lot of confidence in Mad's ability to represent as well. And while I'm a little skeptical about Rogue, I have faith in their ability to bounce back. I think the thing that stands out to me is how Mad is performing right now. And I think that what I want to draw your attention to is on your screen, you can see how Mad's early game and their dominance compares to historic teams in the past. And we had last year in summer a very dominant regular season performance with Rogue completely smashing the early games. 2019 G2 was very famous historically for being extremely dominant in the early game. And who's in third place? It's the Mad Lions, and the split's not even over yet, right? This team is incredibly dominant to the fact that they're already making it onto this leaderboard.
And that's the thing as well. You know what's really impressive? The fact that, you know, we're at a durability patch where early game leech should be harder getting. But you compare it to some of the other stuff we had, right? It's still highly up there. And I think a lot of that comes down to, you know, that early aggression, that kind of LPL style skirmishes we see so often. You know, level 2 camps, well, why'd you do that? I saw Tian do it. I might as well try and do it, right? And I think it's not only just that, it's the fact that everything from Mad Lions go down to planning from Champ Select. If it's like a ward on the enemy red buff that's going to lead into a ward on Raptors from Nisqy afterwards, then tracking into, well, let's invade on blue buff then. And then they get the kills from there. They're just so good at planning ahead and finding the first move already from like minute 0, right?
Yeah, I feel like flexibility is another thing that really stands out to me in their early game as well, because sometimes you'll see that their plan doesn't necessarily go the way that they want to, and then they very quickly pivot. They'll find a new way to build an advantage. They'll do something else on the map that works very fluidly, and I think a lot of it comes off the back of this core trio of Elyoya, Nisqy, and Kaiser. This mid-jungle support trio is just so effective in terms of how they play around lanes, whether it be the mid-jungle getting control of a mid and then moving towards bot, whether it be Kaiser grouping up with Elyoya and attacking top. They seem to have so many options and flexibility in terms of how they want to play the map and where they want to do it, that they seem unrivaled in their ability to get early game leads.
But that can sometimes also be a little bit of their weakness, and I think we saw that in the game against XL, where they struggled to play for Unforgiven, who had a 3k gold lead on the Draven, and the game just got too prolonged.
I'm wondering with Rogue then, are they perhaps lacking the synergy right now that Mad Lions have? Because they had a bit of a shaky start to the split. They seem to improve.
I mean, you take it back to the last time these two teams played against each other, right? Like, it looked good for Mad Lions as well then initially, and even Rogue back then was not having the best of time. Remember, it came back down to an Elder Drake steal. So even back then, I think like we gave them more credit that sometimes maybe they deserved them some of their victories, because some of these victories did come down to a clutch. There was the Elder Drake steal. There was Malrang stealing it with a Poppy Q, not even Smite, right? Some of these clutch factors. On a silver lining, we didn't say this about Rogue in the past, so if they fix some of the issues that you're talking about as well with, you know, not always being on the same page, then they might become a scary team in the future.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is you can look at it from a multitude of perspectives, because on the one hand, arguably their clutch factor has improved dramatically,
yes,
right? And that's a thing that we've never really described Rogue as having. When it matters most in the clutch, is this a team that can step up? The answer has always been no, not really. But in this split, that's definitely been the case, and you're seeing it right now on your screen with so many clutch steals, so many clutch outplays. There have been a lot of moments this split where Rogue have had to do something out of desperation, and they've been able to pull it off. But the same level of consistency, the early game control, their flawless macro that they've had around the map, all of these elements seem to be very inconsistent in when we actually see it and when we don't.
Yeah.
And last week, we really did see a faltering, especially in the early game, of how Rogue was very quickly shut down because of these inconsistencies.
Is that the Malrang factor then? Because last week, to be honest, he was pretty ineffective.
And I think some of that goes down to, well, they used to be so good at actually playing that 2v2. I think Rogue had some of the best 2v2s in the mid and jungle with Malrang and Larssen. But I also think from a drafting point of view, Rogue used to be really good, but last week against Misfits, I don't necessarily think that they're setting themselves up for success. So I was having a look at this, and I was very confused when I saw it happen. At first, I was on the same track as them. I was like, okay, we're playing against Sansara, so let's try and ban out the Skarner, let's ban out the Trundle, and then surely we'll first pick the Poppy yourself, because, you know, that's the champion pool he'll have, and then Jarvan is the next one you have. No, you pick Taliyah, you give up a Poppy. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay. But then you have a response to the Poppy, right? There's something that's going to shut it down now you're giving over. No, you lock Vi for Malrang. into Poppy. And then in my head, I'm like, wait, what? Sorry. And then the way it just, follows up with the other dashes like Gwen and their Mumu as well. I feel like Rogue used to be so good at reading patch and knowing exactly what they wanted to do. I think they had a little bit of a blunder into last week. I don't think that's defining them. I think coming into a new patch here, they should fix these. I have faith in them on fixing these small issues, but that's definitely one of the issues why they were struggling last week.
And also, when we think about Rogue, we also think about that bot lane. We think about Comp and Trymbi. And from watching this split, so many of the pro players point to that bot lane as being the strongest in the RDC. I don't know if they'd all say that, being asked about it now, given the rise of other teams like Mad Lions. But could they be the saving grace given the patch changes in this matchup, Vedi?
I mean, I think that they already play in a style that complements the current patch. And to be fair, so far today, we haven't necessarily seen a significant shift towards a bot lane focus. But I think that playing towards this bot lane makes a lot of sense. It also just fits into the style that Rogue has historically been known for. And I think that when we look at the Kalista player, the Draven player, the man who's willing to outplay you, Comp is the guy that has really been standing out. And that's why I'm super excited for this bot lane matchup, because Unforgiven and Comp right now for me are the two best performing AD carries in the league right now. Could that change over the next 5 games? Probably. But in reality, I think that they're both willing to play champions that can 1v9. They're both willing to drive the bus. And I think that they're both primed and poised to go toe-to-toe and see which one can come out on top.
And it feels like, I mean, obviously you saying with that 5 games, that feels like the past 2 weeks in general as to ranking teams and players in general. But I feel like also just bridging mid-prio with jungle prio into that bot lane pressure is really going to be what's deciding this game as well, because you can have a strong AD carry, but you quite often need teams with the availability to facilitate that. And if Malrang all of a sudden gets shut down by Nisqy and Elyoya usually doing what they do, your bot lane is going to be suffering as a consequence of that. So I think it's really about just stabilizing. You don't need to get ahead, potentially. You just need to stabilize against this really dangerous mat duo and then bring the attention down towards the bottom lane.
Obviously, I know nothing. But if there was one thing I'm thinking here, it's that maybe Rogue should prioritize banning Draven against Unforgiven?
Maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe he sounds nervous. He's very nervous to be on stage with me. Guldborg is like, I'm not even going to dignify her with a response. And it's absolutely fine, because right now I've got something more exciting to introduce. It's a brand new caster pair for Rogue versus Mad Lions. It's Trouble and Quickshot.
You're the best, Frankie.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Welcome to the Caster Desk. That's right, Troubleshot to bring you the last 2 games of the day. Just very quickly before we get to the draft, Hex Flash has been administratively disabled due to that instant revive bug. I do want to advise and let everybody at home know that this is an issue that is only affecting the tournament realm. So that means it's the esports games here, not the live game servers. Now, as we turn our attention to draft, Trouble, we've talked a little bit about the impact this has. There's a number of champions that are obviously very favorable or fond of Hex Flash. What picks do you think we're going to see between these 2 teams? And do you think there's going to be any adjustments? Because we've already seen a couple of enchanters today.
Well, having a little bit of a talk with a few pros in the background, the makeup station. A lot talked about Poppy, how important it is having Hex Flash with Poppy, sitting behind the wall and suddenly you Hex Flash through the wall, slam someone, stun them on another wall, and it's job done. Another thing is all these melee supports on the bot lane, the Nautilus, the Leonas, that want to Hex Flash into something like a Lulu and Nami and sort of render them out of lane.
So very quickly, as you can see, Rogue and Mad Lions will be playing online due to a couple of COVID cases popping up. But that will not stop the action, and these 2 teams both sitting towards the top of the table. We've had 3 very quick, very one-sided games today. I'm hoping this will be a little bit more competitive back and forth. What picks are you looking at? And a point to Frankie, there's Draven banned immediately towards Unforgiven.
There's the answer, probably, definitely, 100%. I'm looking at Zeri and Yuumi from the side of Rogue. Even though they are on blue side, they have shown that from both sides of the map. They are very keen on banning both the Cat, but also the Zeri, which is something that Mad Lions do prioritize in the drafts, whether the blue side or red side. The Cat is already out. I'm expecting for Rogue to also ban Zeri here.
I mean,
as well.
that's Zeri. 5 games played by Unforgiven, 4 of them victories. Jarvan will find himself in the ban pool once again today. We are playing on 12-14, don't forget. So Poppy is still up. You mentioned it, that Zeri is still up and available. And it will be the Poppy banned away as the final one for Rogue. So leaving Zeri open, do you think that's first pick worthy?
Okay, so I'm also thinking here that Kalista is open, so Comp is going to have to make a choice here if they want to be one, because there's so many OP picks up and running at the moment. The Trundle, the Gwen that has been perma-banned in every single other game. We saw Naz, we saw Aziz, which is something that Larssen does tend to gravitate towards in that mid lane. Never mind the Azir, he's banned.
Okay, so Kennen is going to be the final ban. Little bit surprised at this. Near insta-lock on the Gwen, who's found herself banned in all previous games. So now Mad Lions with a number of top-tier picks. They can take this wherever they want to. Taliyah would be a natural fit for Nisqy.
I mean, this is Nisqy's bread and butter, right? He shoves in that mid lane, goes towards the side lane. What other champion to do that better at than Taliyah? She tends to roam really quickly due to her passive as well, close to the wall. So I'm expecting to see a really strong jungler alongside that Taliyah, maybe like a Wukong, a Trundle, something that can impact the game very early on.
And of course, for Nisqy, 3 games played this summer on Taliyah, 3 wins. Career-wise, 16 professional games, 56% win ratio. I want to see what Larssen wants to run into that particular pick. He's not afraid of running something that can contest it or challenge it, look for some kills. And Trouble, you talked about that Trundle, it was locked in for Elyoya, so no surprises there. And of course, now we see what do Rogue prioritize. What do they want to take in phase 1?
Okay, Malrang is usually really deep into the champ pool, but something maybe like the Wukong that is a little bit more STA in the current meta. Ooh, really nice. Paired up with an Ahri, insta-lock for Larssen right there. And this fits straight into the narrative of Rogue and strong individual lanes. Odoamne with the Gwen right now, permabanned in all other 3 games. Insta-locks would be 1. Larssen also with the Ahri, knowing that you're playing into the Taliyah, there's no Lissandras to come in and pretty much destroy you in lane. So very well done so far from Rogue. This fits straight into the Rogue narrative.
It really does. Kind of fits their playstyle. Rogue team has been struggling the last couple of weeks. Sejuani is locked in. I just want to throw out there, for Larssen, this is only his 3rd ever Ahri game. He played 1 in spring. He's played 1 previously in summer. So definitely not something he's super practiced on. And we're seeing Sejuani. We're going to assume that that will be top. 2nd time today. Are you surprised by that? Do you like it?
I'm a real big fan of Sejuani because he can provide so many cool engages. You just see suddenly an ultimate coming out of Fog of War and somebody gets stunned and dies. So I'm a really big fan of Sejuani. I'm sure Xmithy is as well because he did play it a lot in the past. But I think it's really fun to see how top lane, and especially Armut, is going to impact the map, because usually when you want to play Sejuani, you roam a little bit earlier than the other top laners due to the fact that you have that strong tool on your ultimate to catch people off guard.
And of course, for Armut, this will be his first professional game on Sejuani, over 300 in his career. You mentioned Kalista a little bit ago. Rogue have banned that one away themselves.
But look how tables are turned. The team that has Taliyah doesn't have to ban Kalista, because if you're going to pick Kalista into Taliyah, you're in for a very not so great time.
No, of course. In his last bans now, Nila finds herself in the ban pool. Haven't seen her throughout the rest of the day.
Severe would be my guess. He has been picked a lot today, gets a lot of prior down the bot lane. Perma push is pretty safe as well from tower dives. Might be what they're going to be targeting Unforgiven with. Zeri's still up and available.
So you have to think that is a consideration. I mean, the hyper carries that we saw a lot last weekend in Vedius and Jinx up. Ezreal still open, Zeri still open. And we still don't know what Kaiser and Trymbi would like to run in that support role. You would assume, or presume they can either go for some sort of engaged tools or go for those enchanters, and the Zeri, no real surprise.
It makes so much sense, and now you need to think. There's so many engaged tools on the side of Mad Lions. A Lulu would fit so well together down bot with Zeri. So either you pick a hyper carry of your own, like a Vedius and Jinx, and shoving that Lulu right next to it, or you try to fight this with more aggression. I was not expecting the Ezreal, considering how not so well it went on the 2v2 between Trymbi and Combat. Maybe something like a Rakan that really does complement the Ezreal on engages and disengages, as well as poke. The fact that Rakan can actually roam away from the map and leave the Ezreal alone. Ooh.
I'm not going to believe it yet. But I
Spicy.
I do think a little bit about what this Ezreal signals or signifies for Rogue, whether or not they want to unlock that Rakan like you talked about, and then maybe play a little bit around either this Gwen or this Ahri. Kaiser now needs one more champion to close this out. You mentioned the Lulu already, but let's zoom out really quickly. What do you like about the Rogue comp? How do you want to see them play it out?
Just look how mobile they are. Every single one of them is so mobile on the map. Armut is going to have a really rough time actually pinning them down with the Sejuani ult. They need to pile up as much CC as they have. And even though I said, yes, Mad Lions have a lot of engage, maybe, you know, another engage tool in the likes of Kaiser wouldn't hurt them, but they are going to go with the Lulu. I think it makes the most sense next to the Zeri, either Yuumi or Lulu. Yuumi's been banned away. Lulu is the second best champion next to the Zeri. And honestly, putting so many resources on Unforgiven has proven to be the key so far for Mad Lions, so why not give him a support that can actually boost him later on into the game as well.
I also love the wild growth into either, you know, the target that Ahri or Gwen jump onto, but then you do fall a little bit behind. When I look at the damage profiles, it is very heavily skewed in Rogue's favor, but I do think Mad's comp is a bit tankier all around.
Sure, and you also have the Trundle, which is going to make the tankiest, in quotation, members of the side of Rogue, which is most likely going to be the Wukong, maybe the Gwen when she walks in, that he's going to make them a piece of paper.
Well, we'll have to find out how this plays out. Okay, let's talk early game and where you want to see movement, maybe from the junglers, if any.
I mean, definitely top side of the map from the side of Rogue. You've got the Wukong, you've got the Ahri, you've got so much set up towards the top side. Get that. Oh.
Let's find out what happens. We're going to go to the Rift.
Troubleception.
And there we have it. So top side, I think makes a lot of sense when you see Gwen, Wukong, as well as that Ahri. 3 teleports on the side of Rogue. You've obviously got Spellbook there for Nisqy. You'll be able to toggle that one around. And I do like seeing the exhaust from Unforgiven when you consider all of the threats that'll be diving onto him.
Absolutely, and there's a second Spellbook actually coming into effect right here. It's going to be Trymbi sporting the Flash Ignite, and then he's going to be changing depending on what happens on the map. Very important to keep track of, because usually with the Spellbook, we never track the Smite. A lot of people will take the Smite even though your jungler is dead. The opponent team will try to get an objective and then you steal it away with the Spellbook Smite. Now, looking at the map and looking at both of these teams, my eyes go straight to Mad, and I'm like, this is a very Mad-esque draft right here. Nisqy on a perma-roaming champion. You want to shove in that wave very early on and try to make plays together with Elyoya Trundle. That is very strong right now. Pretty much one of the strongest junglers in the meta. Trundle can take the 1v1 into most of the junglers that will run into him. And having Nisqy on the Taliyah with him makes it so difficult for the early game dashes to come through from the sort of Rogue.
And of course, all of those abilities and decision-making in the early game is going to put Rogue under some pressure last weekend. And you take a look at the early game stats. Did not secure first blood, minus 2.5k for Rogue. And that kill death at 14 minutes, 0.5. In contrast, Mad Lions' early game has been consistently strong all summer long. And Rogue, we really want to see them break out of the funk they find themselves in.
Yeah, it was a 0-2 weekend last weekend for Rogue, not the greatest. And honestly, we've done a little bit of research, and Mad have spent, let me check, pretty much most of the early games with more than 1,500 gold in the lead. Most of the games when they turned around onto Mad has been through Mad's faults and small mistakes onto the map, which is something they can definitely fix due to the nature that it comes from them and not their opponents. So again, looking here for that early game aggression coming in from Nisqy, and especially being onto the Taliyah, you need to shut him down early. You cannot allow Nisqy to roam on the map and threaten your top side.
Not at all. Right now, pushing into Larssen. Junglers are doing respective clears. Elyoya will be the first to show his face in the top lane. Odo pretty heavily pressed forward. Armut's going to dash forward there, not be able to find CC just yet. And all of a sudden, Odo's now on the wrong side of the map. Malrang is going to decoy forward. Elyoya's getting snipped. Be able to walk himself away. So pretty heads-up play. Odo actually stepping into the threat, realizing that he had the time. And at the end of the day, it actually is Armut and Elyoya that come away worse for wear.
Yeah, and during this trade in the top side of the map, my eyes were glued to mid lane. I'm like, which mid laner is gonna choose to walk up first? And if you would look at the minimap, Larssen was zoning Nisqy off of being able to go towards the top side of the map. Really good stuff right there. Malrang now in the mid lane. Nisqy very low mana.
Ooh, that's the dash over the wall, and not going to use that Nimbus strike onto Nisqy. He backed away, I think, just at the right moment, realizing that, or just getting a feel. I didn't see any wards in the river, but both junglers looking for some opportunities, nothing presented yet, and we're pretty much even from all the lanes except top. Keep in mind, Armut is down 20 CS right now, as that Gwen has been able to shove into his tower.
And of course, Odoamne had Malrang shadow him towards the top side of the map, right? When he got ganked, Malrang was there to cover him, so he can perma-shove that wave under the tower. Armut can only CS so much. He's actually fallen behind 17 CS so far, which is about 2.5 waves of gold that Armut has actually lost this time. But you're playing as Sejuani. Literally, you're there for that R button to catch somebody off guard and actually pile up your entire team on them to kill them. Odoamne right now is more of a carry role in this game. Having the Gwen, scaling to the late game, making sure you get as much gold onto that champion as fast as possible to try and carry later on in the team fights. And so far, it's going pretty well for him.
I mean, exceptional start. I have asked our observers just to check whether or not a bad trade or something happened very early, because we weren't watching top, and Armut is being jumped in right now. First blood secured on Armut, who is falling significantly further behind. And I believe I just got a note that Armut's just getting bullied in lane, just not finding the CS, not comfortable right now. And this is scary for Mad Lions.
And that's an ignite, Sejuani, because you usually do not run flash onto that champion up in the top lane. So if you do get ganked, it's pretty bad news for you if you get caught with really low HP. Kaiser now roaming mid.
Oh, Larssen sidestepping the threaded volley. His flash is forced, but Nisqy playing that well. I think Larssen just about escaping.
You know what? I'm gonna give props to Larssen for how cool he was during the entire trade, waiting until he was one auto attack away from dying. But look at this. Because Larssen is pushed out of the lane, because Kaiser roamed first mid lane, Elyoya gets the rights to walk into Malrang's jungle, get level 5 first. So right now, that Trundle is ahead in experience, has stolen away Malrang's camps as well. As you can see, Malrang is heading towards the bot side of the map. The only thing that's left for him is his golems.
Well, what will Malrang be able to do this time around? Managing to pick up that first blood in the top lane is huge. Get you a glimpse of this bottom lane just trading evenly. And I think some credit here to Armut. He's been able to bounce back on the CS. Picked it back up to an 8 difference. And he has hit level 6. So he's got access to that glacial prison. Now he needs to find some targets to land it onto. And I think, importantly, Trouble, Nisqy just hitting level 6. What is traditional for Mad Lions is Nisqy will tend to push this wave out, trade pretty aggressively, and then push and play for a side lane. So that's what we're looking for.
And if you look at his wave, he has been stacking as well, which means it will take a while, Larssen, to walk back into his lane, as he didn't have teleport through that trade, and clear out that wave. Spend some mana, spend some time. Nisqy's already into Fog of War. And with champions like Taliyah, you don't necessarily have to actually roam. The act of going into Fog of War pretty much makes the side lanes having to respect, or you might actually die to a gank.
And especially when you look at his statistics there, in terms of kills plus assists, as well as kill participation, first and second. But what I love, jungle proximity, the amount of time he spends around his jungler, and lane percentage, the amount of time he spends in lane. This tells a gigantic story. You know, he really is the team player. He's a big part.
Or he really dislikes mid lane, Trevor.
Well, but either or, it's helping Mad Lions maintain on top of the standings, 10-3. They are down this time around, and Elyoya has not yet found the impact. Do you see any easy opportunities for him, or is this just scale for an objective fight?
You possibly want to scale, but the thing is right now, Sejuani has fallen 1 level behind. Malrang is ahead, actually, in experience right now due to the kill and the fact that has been catching up in experience as well. Larssen has not allowed Nisqy to go onto a side lane, and usually it's Mad Lions with the lead early on in the games that they tend to snowball. Right now, they've fallen 1,000 gold behind, and that's due to Rogue playing really clean and methodical individually in their solo lanes, which is the typical Rogue game we usually see, where they bleed their opponents out through map pressure.
And look at this. Trymbi's on the roam from bottom lane. No pressure from Unforgiven, and Nisqy gets knocked up. He's holding on to that flash. realizing and trusting all of the cooldowns from Rogue had been used, so he escapes by the skin of his teeth. And I think that Rogue point, this is a good sign for Rogue, who have had a couple of bad weeks back-to-back. They've opened up strong. Odo on a favorable match up top is now part of the reason Rogue are in the advantage, and we're setting up for the Herald fight.
And everyone has moved mid lane. Trymbi changed through the spellbook into TP. He's actually right there in the fight. Level 5 for Kaiser as well, doesn't have the wild growth, and Rogue are there and ready to fight.
Comp's going to be a little bit late. True Shot Barrage is on cooldown. He's just making it past the inner turret in mid. The Weaver's Wall comes out from Nisqy, locking up. Rogue Unforgiven gets one for Mad Lions. That's a secure on the Herald, and Trymbi jumps in, dashes right back out, and Rogue are being wrecked. But will the re-engage help out? Unforgiven is firing out those bursts of fire over and over. 2 kills to Mad Lions, 1 for Rogue. But the Herald was secured, picked up by Unforgiven, and Mad Lions get out.
I mean, Mad Lions had 5 members into that Herald pit prior to Rogue getting there. And even though Trymbi did TP in, that is a level 5 Rakan, doesn't have that level 6 engage with his ultimate. He's going, of course, to chase away Mad members right here, try to get some tempo up for his team that is actually dead. But at the end of the day, you were fighting 4 versus 5 for the majority of the time. They have Zeri, you have an early game Ezreal.
And of course, that Ezreal's just not there. Look at the minimap. Gonna be late to the party. Mad Lions, they get to focus down targets first and end up coming out with a win.
And again, Nisqy's Weaver's Wall locks out Trymbi, locks out Larssen, and Malrang goes in on a fantastic 2-man knock-up engage, but no one is there. Odoamne was shoving in that wave on the top side of the map. Your mid lane support are not there yet to support him. By the time Comp comes, the teamfight is already over.
Yeah, exactly. And Mad Lions managing to claw back that deficit 10 minutes in, and they've bounced all the way back. Take a brief moment to highlight Unforgiven as one of the sort of unsung heroes, one of the players that goes maybe a little under the radar, arguably, but significantly improved performance from spring to summer. Look at this, KDA, gold per minute, damage per minute. One of the best bot laners in our league.
Absolutely, but something else about bot lane right now, Kaiser is level 5 in this particular fight. Trymbi is level 6. So if Rogue want to pull the trigger, get into this fight, they do have the advantage of the ultimate on Trymbi's Rakan.
Yeah, they're not going to commit for it though. Neither mid nor bottom lane is making that move. They'll concede the dragon, instead just trying to keep control of the lanes. Small advantages for every single lane on Rogue's side, but despite that 30 CS advantage, because of Armut's assists, he's only down 500 gold, so that is very crucial to keep track of, as both of these teams will now look to start moving around the map just a touch. Also, keep in mind, it's Unforgiven that has the Herald, and right now he's under some threat. Malrang's making his way.
And they know they want to most likely pop it towards the bot side of the map. You see they're slow pushing the wave. They're not overextending whatsoever. You see how far behind Kaiser goes, but they've seen that he's backing. Unforgiven is all alone.
Oh, knocked up into the air, charmed in place, and Unforgiven will get taken out. Trymbi manages to secure that kill. Alcove Gaming, fantastically done by Rogue.
And they're still wrapping around because they know that Kaiser might be lurking to try and stop that wave. You'll see that Elyoya is walking towards the bot side of the map as well, but he's going to be greeted by 3 players of Rogue trying to crush in that wave. They could be claiming yet another victim, but very importantly, getting that first back on the map. Trymbi onto this Rakan can have so much impact, so he's going to prioritize backing. And as you can see,
so much damage going out. Nisqy, by the way, is having a lot of those threaded volleys landing. And Trouble, just to go back, what were you mentioning there about that lane?
You'll see that Rakan is getting the first back right here. He's heading straight into mid. As you see, the Lulu is doing the exact same thing. So both supports want to get on the map as fast as possible because mid lane is a brawl right now.
It really, really is. It feels like Nisqy is winning most of the trades, but Larssen is up on CS. Both teams congregating around this middle lane as the teleport is now being channeled. And for Rogue, I think it's like specifically for Malrang, we're very happy to see his influence in the early game. Definitely helping Rogue pull ahead. That's a good charm onto Elyoya. He's tanking up a couple turret shots. They turn their attention back to the first tower.
Malrang?
Unforgiven, dashing over the wall, chunked down. Exhaust comes out below 100 HP. Manages to make it to the tower. The burn may not kill him. True Shot Barrage is sidestepped. How good are your dancing feet? Unforgiven, taken out by Rogue.
Literally, the only reason Malrang was there was not using his dash onto Unforgiven was to try and give the kill over to Comp, getting these stacks up, getting as fast as possible to his second item, which is going to be the Mythic, most likely for that Ezreal. Is so important to try and get this damage done in those fights. And we'll get to see this one more time. Unforgiven has been left in the bot lane twice, has not respected the fact that he's all alone, very overextended. Of course, you can use that Zeri dash through the wall, but Malrang very cleverly kept his to try and get through. They also burned his exhaust, and add insult to injury, the kill goes over to the opponent AD carry Comp.
That is exactly what Rogue want to happen, and I think doubly effective by keeping Unforgiven down. When you look at Mad Lion's composition, you really need Nisqy and Unforgiven to deal out a lot of damage throughout the course of a team fight. Right now, Nisqy continues to shove forward multiple members of Rogue around. I don't know if Malrang can find another angle. He's got that Cyclone available.
There's been 3 or 2 members mid this entire game. Larssen.
Oh, the seismic shove into the Pillar of Ice, but the quickness fired out from Trymbi. That's buying so much time. Double stack on the Cyclone will allow Larssen to take down his nemesis. Rogue with 5 kills.
And Rogue have read Matt's play so freaking well. They're shutting down Nisqy off the get-go. Larssen has not let him roam once. Trymbi has been hovering mid lane for the majority of the game. Malrang is always there for the counter gank, and this time Nisqy steps too far forward, trying to go for the pick and gets instantly punished. And so far, Rogue has been going great. They drafted their 2 solo laners early on, B1 and B3 in the draft. Odoamne has been consistently ahead towards the top side of the map, mostly without any assistance, bullying the Sejuani around. Larssen not allowing Nisqy to roam the map, has 2 kills into his name. This Ahri is lethal right now, and Comp and Trymbi, very crucially, have not died bot lane. If anything, Comp actually has a kill. So the entirety of the map is going so well right now for Rogue.
And what a turnaround for the last couple of weeks for Rogue. This roster that started to drop back-to-back games, started to have some concerns raised about them. I want to just briefly look at that mid lane. Again, we've done a lot of prep, as you can tell. But whenever Larssen plays on Taliyah, he does not have the same level of impact as other Taliyahs in our league. So what you're looking at is his Taliyah stats versus the rest of the league. What I love about this right now is I was nervous about Rogue controlling Nisqy, and they've shown for 15 minutes with Malrang support with roams from Trymbi, they've been able to put Larssen in an advantageous position, plus 1,300 gold, as well as that item lead, and now they're also playing around this pressure. They're going to shove down top. This will be the first tower secured. No reply from Mad Lion's Trouble.
Look on the map though, there's 3 members of Rogue towards the top side of the map. They want to get that second tier 2, unlocking the whole top quadrant of the jungle for Rogue. Maybe even trying to pick a fight with Armut.
They are indeed. Armut's being jumped on. No prison, not going to do anything. The kill is secured by Odo.
No way.
And they're going to be able to take 2 towers for the cost of the second dragon. So from Rogue's perspective, they're just building up the armaments before they decide to fight in that dragon pit.
I'm going to bring up the minimap because while this push was going on in the top lane, mid lane was also being pushed in by Comp, and they won that mid lane tower as well. So this Herald has won them 2 towers in the top lane, another headbutt onto that inhibitor tower, and Comp has been hammering onto that mid lane tier 1, which means the second that this falls, the top corner of Elyoya's jungle is going to be extremely dark and difficult to cross unless you want to face check.
And that's going to be such a tough situation to come back from if you are Mad Lions. But they do have a number of engaged tools. They also have the ability to kind of dictate the flow of a team fight with that Taliyah ultimate. So for Mad Lions, 2 dragons in the bank is kind of a saving grace. Ideally, if Rogue secure the next one, you're buying time, trying to claw back that gold deficit. But we haven't seen this Sejuani pick be called up because of how much pressure Armut's been under. I mean, he hasn't been able to group with the team. He hasn't been able to really look for a skirmish or a team fight yet.
I think what's very important here, if you're Rogue, is that you're first on the play in the neutral objectives. You definitely do not want to be walking through choke points, through ramps when there is a Taliyah on the enemy team, and your entire team is based off of dashes and being extremely mobile. So for Rogue right now, it's so crucial that they manage to take all these outer towers so they can bleed their vision a little bit further into Elyoya's jungle, so then they can actually get control of rivers and neutral objectives first.
Of course, for Rogue, you need to make sure they don't get surprised, don't get jumped on like you just mentioned. I think their vision has been pretty consistent, pretty good. As Trymbi's moved around the map, you can see they're pushing the wards into Mad Lion's jungle. It's a little bit of support as Malrang's in that bottom quadrant. Larssen shoving down bottom with teleport available. It's a lot of information to work with, and for Mad Lions, this is now the patience game. You have to try stall, try pick up items. That third tower secured. It's exactly what you're talking about.
And very importantly, while the bottom tower was going down, Rogue is perma-pinging that mid lane tower as well. They want to turn lights off for Mad Lions. They want to force them to walk into them for the fights instead of having to pile themselves up into choke points towards Taliyah. This is very well done so far for Rogue, which we've actually praised the macro in that late game when they have their items, when the stable lanes have gone really well in the early game. And right now they're showing that they're taking the game pretty slow. They have a bunch of scaling with the Gwen and the Ezreal later on into their team. So all they have to do is just keep on bleeding their opponents in very traditional Rogue style.
That's it. Threatening or challenging for the Brambleback. Malrang steps forward, smites that away. Is not done yet, continues to step forward. This tower is very, very low. Mystic Shot followed up, Cyclone comes in, flash away from Unforgiven. The tower's finally focused down, and Nisqy steps forward. Weaver's Wall is available to him as the teleport's coming in from Odo down south. Correction, Armut. Armut's coming in from below. Nobody's died just yet, and Armut is now the focus. We'll be able to dash over the wall. Nobody dies, but I think for Rogue, big signal. They are willing to push this advantage.
They took mid lane tier 1, they took Unforgiven's double summoners, and they very crucially took Armut's. And they take Armut's TP, almost taking Elyoya's life right there. That is a triple big W for the side of Rogue. 7,006 point something, I can't do math anymore, 1,000 gold in the lead for Rogue. And again, this is not a very explosive game from them. They have 6 kills in 20 minutes, but this is what Rogue is known to do so well. All these regular splits, back to back to back, that they've been first place, why they're so good in best of ones, is because they can play through their solo laners slow, methodical, choking their opponents out of resources and ending the game on a 10k gold lead.
I mean, that's what Rogue want to do, and that's the Rogue that we've missed for a little bit.
They're back, Trevor.
Since their loss to G2 2 weeks ago on Saturday, there's been some troublesome games, but I think for everybody else in the league, this is kind of an exciting turn here with Rogue in a huge lead right now. If they are to close this out, look at those standings. It literally makes that race for playoffs even more exciting because we genuinely just don't know who is going to place where in the top 6.
And also, if you think about the rivalry between Rogue and Mad for the past year and a half, Rogue being able to take that victory over Mad, that will put them on a 2-0 over Mad. So if they do end up tying in the standings, they have the 2-0 head-to-head.
I mean, all time is 14 wins to Rogue, 12 wins to Mad Lions. So very, very close. Right now, it is not very close. Odo continues to press the advantage. Plus 50 CS. He's threatening this bottom inner turret. All of those wards that were placed in Mad Lion's jungle earlier allows him to push relatively safely. It allows the dragon to be secured uncontested. That, I think, was expected here. Mad don't want to force that fight. For Mad Lions, it now becomes a war of attrition. Don't get caught out of position. Don't let Rogue take Baron. And just buy time.
I think what's very difficult here is that also Mad relies heavily on Armut getting that ultimate down onto a member of Rogue, but they're all so slippery and mobile with the composition that they've chosen that Nisqy needs to be there. He needs to lay down the rocks, no one can dash or they get stunned, or if they do, Armut can then land the ultimate on top. These are 2 conditions that need to be met unless Rogue are too late to actually react to an Armut ultimate, which is not going to be the case because their vision so far has looked stellar. You see that Larssen and Malrang have been going around as a duo. You've seen that Trymbi has been moving into the jungle, setting down vision for themselves. So Mad need to find a pick on a side lane.
They really do. Need to have some vision for that. We need to look at the minimap constantly. And they need a little bit of a timing advantage or a good read on where Rogue are going to be, because I don't think Rogue have really allowed opportunities to be punished. They've really dictated the flow of this game.
Okay, that was really cheeky from Malrang. He dashed into the pit and then he got back out.
What's he doing
so
now?
He's still inside Mad Lion's jungle. Now they're going to see him, but it's very important because if you look on the minimap, top side of the map, it is Larssen perma-solving this wave, the perma-solving bot wave. Comp has actually solved in mid-wave as well. So again, they're trying to force Mad Lions to play underneath their towers, which gives Rogue the timing to put down their vision and maybe even start a neutral objective. And by the time they've already started, this is where you can start catching up these team fights, finding who overextends from Mad to fight for vision, and then punish them.
I mean, Rogue just exquisitely controlling the jungle. Take a look at the itemization in the bottom, plus 1,500 gold top, 1,900 in the jungle, 1,600 in the mid lane. It's just significant advantages
Even the
for
support is
everybody.
rich.
The tower is just pressured. That's literally multiple minutes of gameplay, pushing all of the lanes, pushing that vision into the jungle, and it will allow Rogue to pick up their 5th tower of the game. They push that lead even further, and it's now looking like Rogue are running out of quote-unquote easy objectives. I use that term very loosely. So I think the focus is probably going to start shifting towards the likes of Baron and Dragon, obviously.
The thing that's really on Mad's favor is the fact that they've taken 2 of these dragons, which means it earns them 10 more minutes until Rogue will be on that soul point, until they will be fighting for soul. Mind you, yes, these are buffed dragons, but this is still a cloud soul, which is something that the teams do not favor fighting over very often. Now here again, Malrang, his favorite position, top side of the map, straight into Elyoya's jungle, but that's 3 members of Mad right there that are instantly hovering towards his side.
It's just so scary because even if Mad want to start the fight, their vision line ends at the entrances to the river. They are behind in, combat stats. So they really, really have to be careful with how they push forward. It's a minute and a half until the next dragon spawns. The vision is being littered inside that red buff area for Mad Lions. And for Rogue, they are now starting to force an error from Mad so they can unlock one of those neutral objectives.
And again, back to the same repeating strategy. You see Larssen left his fountain straight towards top to put that pressure. You see Odoamne pressuring that bot side of the map. Comp has not left mid lane at all. Rogue right now are not allowing Mad to breathe. The second these waves crash on the tower, Rogue is instantly in your jungle trying to take your vision away and setting up theirs. Larssen needs to be careful. There's 2 members there.
I mean, Larssen right now, 2-0-1. That Ahri pick into the Taliyah has proven to be very effective thus far. Despite the damage he was taking in lane, it never went anywhere. It never grew into something Mad Lions could use to build an advantage. And because of that fact, because the early game was so heavily in Rogue's favor, we're now at this position where Mad are 8k down. And they are continuing to stall. This is a good sign, but it's starting to get hairy because I think Rogue continue to apply pressure, and I'm just waiting for them to pull the Baron card.
And at this point, again, when you see Larssen moving towards the top side of the map, if you look at Nisqy, he has Ignite through his spellbook. So Rogue can actually play towards the bot side of the map, get yet another dragon that's spawning in 8 seconds, start stacking the map. When they do get the soul, they'll be so quick on the map, and the rotations so far have been stellar. You'll see how Mad are actually desperate to get vision into that Baron pit. They know how fast they can go down. You've got Wukong, Ahri, Ezreal. Yes, not the fastest, but look at their levels. Level 16 on Ahri, level 15 on Ezreal, level 12 onto Malrang's Wukong as well. 3 items onto Ezreal. Yes, you're not hyper carry in terms of you don't have a steroid in your build, but you do take down the Womb at this point, and Mad definitely do not want Baron on the side of Rogue because they already have 3 lanes that are bleeding towards them.
3 lanes that are bleeding. That Cloud Drake was just secured. You can see some of the changes on your screen here on 12-14. And I think the way that Rogue are moving around the map, probably relatively happy with the Cloud Soul as they work towards it. But the tempo of this game has slowed down significantly because of how much of an advantage Rogue were able to accrue. Now, in order to push that lead even further, it gets much riskier. You need way more wards. So this is a good sign for Mad Lions. I have a feeling that Rogue are maybe too slow. Do you think that is fair to say? Or?
I'd say this is classic Rogue gaming right here. They're almost 10,000 gold in the lead, 25 to 27 minutes in, with only 6 kills. They're literally bleeding their opponents from pure and raw macro and map pressure, which is what we know Rogue for.
Ooh, that charm. Not going to be able to do a whole lot. Larssen and Trymbi technically were outnumbered, but the damage from that Orb of Deception cannot be understated. Malrang once again stepping relatively far forward, has the backup of the rest of the team.
Very importantly, Larssen has no ult, he just has a flash.
Okay, Spirit Rush is on cooldown. Weaver's Wall is popped. That will get a teleport out of Odoamne. And Mad Lions, they are hunting. They've grouped up, they've formed the pack, and for a few minutes now, they've been looking for opportunities, but they haven't fully committed.
That's due to the fact that Armut is able to group right now. Armut is the trigger to catch someone. That someone could also be Odoamne, but because he has the bubble, of course, and he's in vulnerability, they cannot really catch him unless the W from Nisqy hits him first. And again, Armut is the trigger for Mad. They're looking, Malrang on the bot, Odoamne on the top, but Larssen does have TP.
Oh, I'm waiting for the trigger to be pulled. Armut is going to dash over the wall. Baron hasn't yet been started, and now the Rogue reinforcements arrive. Odo and Trymbi, the first into the fray. They jump onto Elyoya. He's snipped to pieces, loses a third of his hit points. That is gigantic. And this time around, Rogue, they're starting off the Baron.
They're starting off the Baron, and Trymbi will play Gatekeeper right there. Look at Larssen, he does have his ultimate level 17 on this Ahri.
Oh, there's the quickness thrown down. Elyoya stays alive for just a few seconds longer. That smite doing work. Baron down to 5,000 hit points as Mad Lions have stepped forward. Armut's held on to that glacial prison, hasn't pulled the trigger yet, and Rogue are running for their lives. They have been forced away. That is huge for the Mad Lions.
I'd like to see the replay again because I think Elyoya used his smite for this fight and he didn't have it for another 5 seconds. So if Rogue knew this information, they would have burned down that Baron instantly because they know they have the advantage of having that smite on their side. But again, Mad, really quick on the trigger. The fact that the Sejuani is there, can be the front line, can catch you off guard, doesn't necessarily allow Rogue to go too deep into these choke points. And we mentioned these choke points. You play through them if you're Rogue versus a Taliyah. You're going to be heavily punished. Malrang in his favorite position, topside quadrant yet again.
Yeah, very far forward. His team is not really close by. And I think you're 100% right, Trouble. I think Elyoya smited that red buff, picks up some HP to survive, and Rogue are now stepping back. Armut's got the TP, he's level 16 in that bottom lane. The Observer's doing a great job of showing how little vision Mad Lions have to work with. And we're stuck in this Baron dance as Rogue trying to force Mad, but Mad are not yet overextending to the point they can get punished.
Tell you what though, there's both, all three teleports, are down for the side of Rogue. So when they're starting to pressure the side lane like Odoamne is doing towards the bot side of the map right now, they're not gonna have a TP to join. Trymbi
is in a little bit of trouble, has been able to run for a while. Exhaust is thrown out. Trymbi caught by the prison, is gonna be forced to flash over the wall. The dash comes forward and Nisqy gets the kill. Mad Lions with a numbers advantage turn towards Baron.
Keep track of these ultimates though, because I think Larssen used his to get away, so he doesn't have it available on the other side. Nisqy, no Weaver's Wall. And Rogue are really good at poking their opponents down, especially when they bounced up in that Baron pit, especially with the Ezreal having 3 items.
And of course, Mad Lions, they cannot risk starting that Baron. It'll take a long time, and the waves were just not in their favor. So this time, Mad able to punish Trymbi, who's very far forward.
But we mentioned Rogue can't join these fights. Odoamne's bot lane, Malrang is towards the bot side of the map as well. They cannot join. Odoamne doesn't have teleport. The only one you have there is Larssen, and all they're doing is pretty much getting out of dodge and trying to get out of a sticky situation together. They blow the summoners, they blow their ultimates as well. Trymbi blew both of his summoners. Larssen has to block his ult, which means that even if he finds a way back into the fight, doesn't have the ultimate to find, so that Ahri is not as potent. And Mad, slowly but surely, keep creeping back in. They keep finding these peaks, and the first ones in the river.
They are. There's no teleports, remember? Trouble just talked about it. They're late. Rogue are not going to arrive in time. Baron is being burned down. 4,000 hit points. It's gone. It's gone. Mad Lions have secured the Baron. True Shot Barrage made it very, very close. Can Rogue find any kills on the way out? Odo on their steps forward. The Cyclone is knocking up the Mad Lions. Odo's chucking out the needles and snipping his way. Comp Arcane shifts over the wall, and there is so much damage. 2 members of the Mad Lions are down already, and Unforgiven will be the 3rd. Larssen Spirit rushes forward as Kaiser is running for his life. Mad get Baron, but get decimated in the fight.
And Rogue were trying to find a way to force Mad to fight as Malrang will seal the deal with an ace. And Mad gave it to them, Trevor. Rogue right now are 10,000 gold in the lead. They have so many more items, so much more damage in their inventories, and Mad gave them the teamfight that they so longed for.
It was the make or break play for the Mad Lions. Gamble it all on the Baron, and they got punished. But frankly speaking, Rogue smashed from the early game. And after a troublesome week 6, turn their attention to the #1 seed. They beat Mad Lions in week 1. Rogue beat Mad Lions in week 7. And the 2-0 head-to-head could be massive at the end of Super Week next week.
That is so important when you're chasing for the #1 spot. Reminder, Rogue is a team that's notoriously known for ending first in regular split. So if they want to continue that tradition with themselves, they need to beat whatever team is sitting on #1 right now, and they've done it twice.
I mean, that is just, it just makes the rest of the games even more interesting when you look at the top of the table. I think very impressed with Rogue's early game and how Malrang was able to find some influence again. And for Mad Lions, a bit of a wake-up call that Taliyah not finding success today.
Especially since it was picked really early, right? Rogue said, we're gonna play our game and we're gonna beat you in our game. Because if we play our best style, you can't beat us even if you play yours. And it was true. Slow, methodical, strong individual play into Malrang shadowing, finding these picks. Bot lane not dying, actually getting the kills.
And so much excitement here in Berlin. Obviously, this is for G2 versus XL, our next game. Before we get to that, Rogue obviously need to have a player of the game. You can vote at LEC on Twitter. Odoamne, Larssen, and Comp. I do think some questions, some discussion can be had around that mid-game. There was a gigantic advantage so early on, and I started to get nervous, started wondering if Mad Lions were being given too much time, too much freedom. But I think both teams just playing, very safe, very respectable. So a lot to discuss whether or not they could have done anything different.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think Rogue were looking to slap Mad with their wallets because they were 10k ahead. And I think Mad pretty much single-handedly gave them that chance for the fight.
So Rogue going to be very, very happy with that. They move to 9-5, tied with Vitality as we look ahead to their games tomorrow to next week. Of course, if you don't make playoffs, you don't make Worlds. And for Mad Lions and Rogue, these are two teams that have been showing consistently they can contend for the title. I think until this recent blip, Rogue definitely one of the stronger looking teams from the beginning of summer, at least until last week.
Yeah, and of course we need to wait for the playoffs as well, because we know how strong Rogue are in regular season. But then when it comes to playoffs, we always have questions. And going towards Worlds, it being summer season, they need to actually gear up even more.
They really, really do. All right, I believe we are ready to chat to Comp and Laure standing by.
Thank you, Quickshot. And Comp, thank you also for joining me for this interview. Congrats on breaking the lose streak for Rogue. Before we talk about the past few weeks, I want to ask about the draft because Mad Lions banned Nilah, which is a champion we haven't seen at all so far. So without revealing too much, I know, do you think we may see the champion in the future? And what's your take from what you've seen in solo queue so far, maybe?
Well, to be fair, first of all, thanks for having me. But
My
to
pleasure.
be fair about Nilah, I don't really see it on solo queue a lot because I think it's just permaband, so it's just scrim data mostly. I think the experience thing is really toxic, honestly, if you can abuse it very well. You should always be 1 to 2 levels ahead on support every game.
I see. Well, we'll see if the champion pops at some point in the LEC. But as I said, you just broke the loss streak. And none again other than Mad Lions. Twice you beat them this split. But if you think about the past few weeks for Rogue, especially when you think about the early games, things have been difficult for you. How do you explain the recent results? And do you think the bad phase is behind you now?
I think we had I wouldn't say even a bad week last week. It was mostly just a bad weekend. In the official games, I think the scripts were going decent, I would say. I wouldn't say like very well, but decent. So I was pretty... I thought it would just be a 2-0 week, but in the end we kind of got, let's say, by better teams. I mean, I think our potential is way higher than what we have shown for now, at least. But I'm still very happy with how things are going, and I think we will be prepared for playoffs because that's the thing that matters mostly in the end.
It is in the end. We lost your camera, but we still have the voice, so we'll stay on me, but you can keep on talking. You mentioned potential just now. I want you to elaborate on that. Where do you see the potential, but why do you think we don't see it on stage maybe so far?
I don't necessarily think we haven't saw it on stage yet. I think we are just very inconsistent. So it's for the best example is basically last week we just went 0-2 versus teams that were supposed to be easy 2-0s in my opinion. So I think as long as we're just consistent, we for sure have the level and we for sure have shown some of this level even, for example, last playoffs versus Fnatic. I mean, I wouldn't talk about the GT series, but versus Fnatic, I think we've shown decent stuff.
All right, I want us to look at the standings right now because you mentioned consistency, which is something that's going to be really important, especially coming into the last 4 games. When you look at the state of the LEC right now and how close teams are together, what do you see for Rogue and where do you hope you can end up by the end of summer?
Well, I think my camera's still lagging. I think we should probably still end up in first place. I'm not sure if it's completely in our hand right now. I mean, of course, basically what I mean is if we end up winning every game, but Matt still wins all their games, they're still first, right? So I'm not sure how that works exactly. But yeah, I mean, we are just aiming to win every game and see how it goes. For sure, everyone aims for first place, but we see.
You still have everything within your hands, and I'm glad to hear that last week was just a bad memory for Rogue. Comp, thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully with a camera tomorrow. And
it's
we're
okay,
going to
voice
take...
of Comp.
All right, well, we're going to take a short break now. Thank you for joining me, Comp, and we're going to be back for the last game of the day in a few minutes with an on-fire audience, Excel versus G2 coming up next.
Even the biggest champ needs a break.
And some Kit Kat for you, and some Kit Kat for Elder, and some... No Kit Kat for Barrett.